I still remember standing on that stage in my cap and gown, holding my diploma and acceptance letter, feeling like I had finally made it. Full scholarship to one of the best universities on the West Coast, tuition, room, board, even a stipend for books. My parents smiled for the cameras that afternoon, throwing me a nice dinner that evening. Then over dessert, they told me the real plan. They wanted the money, all of it. When I refused, everything I thought I knew about family shattered in ways I never saw coming. Before I continue with what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. Growing up in a middle-class suburb of Sacramento, I always knew something felt off about my place in the family. My father, Glenn, worked as a corporate sales manager, always chasing the next commission, the next deal. He never came to my school events, never asked about my grades, never seemed to notice I existed unless I cost him money. My mother, Diane, sold real estate and cared more about what the neighbors thought than what was happening under her own roof. She spent dinner parties bragging about my younger sister while I sat there invisible. My sister Kimberly was 15, 3 years younger than me, and the center of their universe. Dance classes twice a week at a studio that charged $200 a month. Designer clothes for school. They had already started a fund for her first car. Meanwhile, I got my first job at 14 bussing tables at a chain restaurant off the highway. I bought my own clothes, my own school supplies. Some weeks when money got tight, I bought my own groceries. They called it teaching me independence. I called it what it was. But I did not let it break me. I stayed late at the library every day after school studying until they kicked me out at closing. I spent weekends at coffee shops nursing a single cup of drip coffee for 4 hours while I worked through practice tests and scholarship applications. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, saw something in me my parents never did. She helped me apply for fee waivers, wrote recommendation letters, encouraged me to aim higher than I thought possible. I applied to 12 universities entirely on my own. My parents never asked about a single one. Then March of my senior year arrived and everything changed. The acceptance letter came in a thick envelope with a university seal embossed in gold. I opened it standing by the mailbox, hands shaking. Full ride scholarship, 4 years, everything covered. The letter detailed it all, $65,000 per year in total value. Tuition fees, housing, meal plan, even $3,000 annually for books and personal expenses. I read it 3 times to make sure it was real. I walked into the house holding that letter like it was made of gold. For once, my parents actually looked at me, really looked at me. My mother grabbed the letter from my hands, reading it aloud, while my father stood behind her reading over her shoulder. Then something I had never seen before happened. They hugged me, both of them at the same time. My mother had tears in her eyes. My father clapped me on the shoulder and said he always knew I had it in me. For about 10 seconds I felt like I had a real family. Then my father started asking questions, detailed questions. How did the scholarship money get distributed? Did it come as a check, direct deposit? Could I access it? When would the first payment arrive? I tried to explain how it worked, that the money went straight to the university, that room and board meant I would live on campus in the dorms, that I would not actually see most of the money myself. He kept pushing, asking if there was any way to redirect the funds to manage them differently. My mother jumped in, saying I was too young to handle that kind of financial responsibility, that they should probably help me manage it since I had never dealt with large sums before. Something cold settled in my stomach, but I pushed it away. I wanted so badly to believe they were finally proud of me. I wanted to believe this moment was real. 2 weeks before graduation, my parents announced we were having a special family dinner, just the 3 of us. Kimberly was conveniently spending the night at a friend's house. My mother cooked pot roast, something she only did for important occasions. My father opened a bottle of wine. The table was set with the good dishes. We made it through the salad and halfway through the main course before they brought up what they called family financial planning. My father started the conversation. He had been doing some thinking, he said, about my scholarship and what made the most sense for everyone. The university was 2 hours away, he explained. That was a long commute, but doable. Plenty of students commuted to save money. If I lived at home and drove to campus for classes, the scholarship money allocated for room and board, roughly $18,000 per year, would not be needed for its intended purpose. He slid a piece of paper across the table. He had done the math. $72,000 over 4 years. Money that could really help the family during a transitional time. I stared at the numbers, not understanding. My mother jumped in, her voice gentle, almost apologetic. They had been meaning to talk to me about this, she said. They had raised me for 18 years, fed me, clothed me, kept a roof over my head. It was only fair that they received some compensation for all those years of investment. The scholarship money for room and board was the perfect solution. I could still go to university, still get my degree. I would just live at home and give them the portion meant for housing. I tried to explain that it did not work that way. The scholarship was not cash in my hand. The university received the money directly and applied it to my student account. Room and board charges were billed by the school. If I did not live on campus, that portion of the scholarship would simply not be disbursed. There was no check to sign over, no bank transfer to redirect. My father's face darkened. There had to be a way, he insisted. I could take out student loans instead of using the scholarship. Use the loan money to pay the university, then give them the scholarship funds. Or I could accept the scholarship live on campus and they could bill me for back rent for my childhood bedroom, 18 years at $500 a month. Do the math, Pascal. That is over $100,000. I sat there frozen, the pot roast, turning to ash in my mouth. My mother was crying now, but they were angry tears. After everything they had done for me, this was how I repaid them. Kimberly needed private college prep courses that cost $15,000. They were refinancing the house to pull out equity. Glenn's job was uncertain in the current market. They needed this money. I said no. I said it quietly at first, then louder when they kept talking over me. No, I would not commute 4 hours a day. I would not take out loans to give them money. I would not pay them back rent for a childhood I did not ask for. The scholarship was mine, earned by my work, my grades, my effort. They had never supported my education. They did not get to profit from it now. My father stood up so fast his chair fell backward. He called me selfish, ungrateful, a disappointment. My mother said I was breaking her heart, that she never raised me to be so greedy. I stood up too, shaking but holding my ground. I told them I was accepting the scholarship exactly as offered, living on campus and starting in the fall. Then I left the table and went to my room. The next 3 weeks were psychological warfare. Every single day they tag-teamed me with guilt trips. My mother would cry at breakfast, talking about how much she sacrificed raising me, how she gave up her career ambitions to be a mother. My father would corner me after work, presenting new calculations, new schemes. He showed me spreadsheets claiming they spent over $250,000 raising me, food, clothes, utilities, a portion of the mortgage allocated to my bedroom. He itemized everything down to estimated costs of birthday presents and Christmas gifts. They wanted me to take out student loans, the full amount even though I had the scholarship. They had researched it, found that I could borrow up to the total cost of attendance. I could take $65,000 in loans each year, use that to pay the university, and then the scholarship money, the real scholarship money, could come to them. When I explained again that this was not how it worked, that the scholarship was not separate money I could access, they called me a liar. Kimberly joined the campaign. My little sister, who I had bought school supplies for when our parents forgot, who I had tutored through algebra, suddenly looked at me like I was a stranger. She called me greedy, said she always knew I only cared about myself, told me I was ruining the family. She needed those college prep courses, she said. Her friends were all taking them. How was she supposed to compete? They implemented punishments like I was 12 instead of 18. Curfew at 8 in the evening, even though I was working late shifts at the restaurant. They took my phone, the one I paid for with my own money. They cut off the internet access in my room. When I stayed at my friend Trevor's house to study, they called his parents and accused them of harboring a runaway. I picked up extra shifts, working every hour I could. I slept at Trevor's house when his parents allowed it, which was often. Mark and Susan, Trevor's mom and dad, saw what was happening, even though I tried to hide it. Susan would make extra dinner and send leftovers home with me. Mark slipped me $40. One night, told me to keep it quiet, said every kid deserves a safety net. I had applied for early move-in at the university, a summer bridge program for scholarship students. 6 weeks of classes and orientation starting in July. When the acceptance came, I felt like I could finally breathe. 6 weeks. I just had to survive 6 more weeks, then I would be gone. Graduation day arrived at the beginning of June. I graduated in the top 10% of my class, wore the honor cords and the scholarship medal. I walked across that stage to polite applause and looked out into the audience. My parents sat near the back, stone-faced. They did not clap when my name was called. They did not smile. After the ceremony, other families gathered for photos, laughing and crying and celebrating. My parents walked straight to their car and left. I found Trevor and his family. Susan hugged me tight and whispered that she was proud of me. Mark shook my hand like I was an adult and equal. They took pictures with me in my cap and gown, made me feel like the moment mattered. Then I went to Trevor's house for his graduation party, surrounded by people who were genuinely happy for both of us. I stayed until 11 that night, later than I should have, but I did not want the day to end. When I finally got home, I knew something was wrong the moment I pulled onto my street. The porch light was off. We always left the porch light on. I walked up to the front door and tried my key. It did not work. I tried again, thinking maybe I had the wrong key, even though I had used this key for 4 years. Nothing. Then I saw them. Trash bags. 6 of them lined up on the front lawn. My belongings spilling out. Clothes, books, my laptop, shoes. Everything I owned stuffed into cheap black garbage bags like actual trash. There was a note taped to the front door. I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately, the same looping script she used for grocery lists. Since you care more about money than family, you are no longer welcome here. You made your choice. I stood there in my graduation gown, still wearing my honor cords, and stared at those trash bags. Lights were on in the neighbors' houses. I knew they were watching. Mrs. Chen from next door had her curtains pulled back. The Thompsons across the street had their front door open. Everyone could see Pascal Reeves, the scholarship kid, homeless on his graduation night. I called my parents. My mother answered on the 4th ring. I asked what was happening, why my stuff was outside, why the locks were changed. She said I knew exactly why. I had made my choice. Now I had to live with it. I asked where I was supposed to go. She said that was not her problem anymore. Then she hung up. I sat down on the curb right there in my graduation gown and tried to process that this was real. My phone rang. Trevor. I had texted him a confused message and he immediately knew something was catastrophically wrong. 20 minutes later, his parents pulled up in their minivan. Mark and Susan did not ask questions right there on the street. They just started loading trash bags into their van. Mrs. Chen came outside and helped, not saying a word, just grabbing bags and loading them with angry efficiency. When everything was packed, Susan put her arm around me and guided me into the van like I was fragile. They set me up in their guest room that night, the room where Trevor's grandmother stayed when she visited. It had a real bed, a dresser, a lamp on the nightstand. Susan brought me clean towels and told me I could stay as long as I needed. Mark said we would figure everything out in the morning. Trevor hugged me at his bedroom door and told me his parents had been talking about offering me the room for weeks. They just did not know how to bring it up without making it weird. I did not sleep that night. I lay in that guest bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to understand how I had become homeless on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life, trying to figure out what I had done wrong, whether I should have just given them what they wanted, whether keeping my scholarship was worth losing my family. The next morning, Susan made pancakes. Over breakfast, she and Mark laid out a plan. I could stay in the guest room rent-free until university housing opened in July. 6 weeks. They would not accept money, would not accept payment. I was part of their family now, they said. That is what family does. I worked double shifts that entire summer. Breakfast shift at the restaurant, then I would go straight to an evening shift at a grocery store I had just been hired at. 12, sometimes 14-hour days. I saved every single dollar. I needed first semester expenses, books, supplies, a safety net in case something went wrong. I also filed for legal emancipation paperwork. I was already 18 legally an adult, but I wanted documentation. I wanted proof that I was fully independent, that my parents had no legal claim to anything in my life. I changed my emergency contacts at the university, removed my parents from every form, every document. Where it asked for family information, I listed Mark and Susan with their permission. In July, my mother called, not to apologize, not to check if I was alive. She asked if I had come to my senses yet, if I was ready to discuss things reasonably. I told her there was nothing to discuss. She said I was making a huge mistake, that I would regret this, that family was forever. I told her she made her choice when she threw my belongings in trash bags. Then I hung up. My father sent one email, no words, just an attachment, a spreadsheet titled "What Pascal Owes." Every dollar they claimed to have spent on me from birth to 18. Food costs estimated at $400 per month for 18 years, $86,400. Clothing, utilities, housing, insurance, medical expenses, school fees. The total at the bottom, $273,612. He expected repayment. The email said now that I was benefiting from such a generous scholarship. I blocked their numbers. I blocked their email addresses. I blocked them on every social media platform. Kimberly sent messages through mutual acquaintances from high school, cruel messages that I had abandoned them, that I was selfish, that everyone knew what kind of person I really was. I did not respond. I just kept working, kept saving, kept moving forward. When university housing opened in late July, Mark and Susan helped me move into the dorms. They brought me cleaning supplies, extra towels, a small microwave for my room. Susan cried when she hugged me goodbye, but they were good tears. She told me to call any time, that their door was always open. Mark slipped $200 into my hand when Susan was not looking, told me to buy textbooks. I stood in my dorm room after they left, looking around at my new life. Small room, twin bed, desk under the window. It was mine. Safe. No one could take it away. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe all the way. University became my sanctuary. I threw myself into my classes, declared a major in computer engineering with a minor in business. I joined coding clubs and networking groups. I made friends, real friends, people who did not know anything about my family situation and just liked me for who I was. I worked part-time in the campus IT department, 15 hours a week, helping students with computer problems and maintaining lab equipment. Summers were for internships. Sophomore year, I landed a position at a growing tech company in Silicon Valley. $18 an hour, which felt like a fortune. I worked 50-hour weeks, lived in cheap shared housing with 3 other interns, and saved almost every penny. Junior year, I got an internship at a bigger firm, $28 an hour. I could barely believe it. The work was challenging, building actual products that real people would use, and I loved every minute of it. Trevor stayed my best friend through all of it. We talked every week, visited when we could. His family continued treating me like a son. Holidays, I went to their house. Thanksgiving, Christmas, summer barbecues. They never made it weird, never made me feel like charity. I was just part of the family. I started seeing a therapist my sophomore year. The university offered free counseling, and I finally admitted I needed help processing everything. Dr. Williams helped me understand that what my parents did was financial abuse, emotional manipulation, that I did not owe them my scholarship, my success, or my future, that cutting them off was not cruel, it was survival. I learned to set boundaries, to recognize toxic behavior patterns, to stop feeling guilty for protecting myself. I learned that family is not just blood. Family is the people who show up, who support you, who love you without conditions. Mark and Susan were more my parents than Glenn and Diane ever had been. Junior year brought something incredible. I landed a competitive internship at a major tech firm in San Francisco, the kind of position that usually went to graduate students. The pay was substantial, the work was cutting edge, and at the end of the summer, they asked me to come back after graduation, not as an intern, as a full software engineer. Senior year, 3 months before graduation, I received an official offer letter. Starting salary, $95,000 plus benefits, stock options, health insurance, retirement matching. I sat in my dorm room, holding that letter, remembering sitting on a curb in a graduation gown 5 years earlier, and I cried. But they were not sad tears. I graduated summa cum laude that spring, top of my class in the engineering department. Trevor and his whole family came to the ceremony. They cheered so loud when my name was called that people turned around to look. After the ceremony, Susan hugged me and whispered that she wished every student had someone as proud of them as she was of me. I hugged her back and told her I did have someone. I had them. There was a moment standing there in my cap and gown for the second time where grief washed over me, grief for what should have been, for the parents who should have been there, for the family I deserved but never had. But underneath the grief was something stronger. Pride. I had done this, not despite them, but without them. I had built a life, a future entirely on my own terms. 3 weeks after graduation, I started my job. I moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment in San Jose with a roommate to split costs. The Bay Area was expensive, but my salary made it manageable. I bought furniture slowly, carefully, choosing pieces I actually liked instead of whatever was cheapest. I made my apartment into a home, a safe space that felt like mine. I excelled at work. The projects were complex, the problems challenging, and I thrived under the pressure. I stayed late when needed, volunteered for difficult assignments, learned everything I could from senior engineers. 18 months in, they promoted me to senior engineer. My salary jumped to $125,000. I could barely process it. 5 years earlier, I was sleeping in someone's guest room with everything I owned in trash bags. After 3 years with the company, another promotion came, team lead. I was managing a small group of engineers making architectural decisions, interfacing with executives. The salary jumped again, $145,000. I started investing, reading everything I could about personal finance, retirement planning, building wealth. I met with a financial advisor, set up aggressive saving plans, invested in index funds and a diversified portfolio. At 23 years old, exactly 5 years after being kicked out, I bought a small 2-bedroom condo in a Sacramento suburb, not far from where I grew up, but in a much nicer area. Tree-lined streets, good schools, safe neighborhoods, the kind of place I used to dream about when I was buzzing tables at 14. I furnished it carefully. A real couch, not something from a curb. A bed frame, a proper mattress. Art on the walls that I picked out myself. Kitchen supplies, plants, bookshelves filled with technical manuals and novels I actually wanted to read. I created a space that felt peaceful, stable, successful. A space that was completely mine. I was still in therapy, working through complicated feelings about family success and what I deserved. Dr. Williams, who I still saw monthly, helped me understand that financial success did not erase emotional wounds, but it did provide safety, security, options. I did not have to forgive my parents to be happy. I could hold both truths. They hurt me deeply, and I built a good life anyway. I had started dating someone wonderful. Emma, a graphic designer I met through mutual friends at a work event. She was kind, funny, creative. She knew about my family situation. I told her early on, because I did not want secrets. She just listened, held my hand, and told me she was glad I protected myself. We had been together 8 months when I bought the condo. She helped me pick out paint colors, hung curtains, with me stayed over most weekends. Life felt stable, peaceful, successful in ways that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with safety, autonomy, and genuine connection. I had not had contact with my birth family in 5 years. Sometimes I drove through my old neighborhood feeling a strange mix of nostalgia and relief. Nostalgia for the child I was, who tried so hard to earn love. Relief that I got out. Then one Saturday morning in October, everything came crashing back. I was making coffee in my kitchen, planning a quiet weekend. Emma was coming over later. I was going to make dinner. We were going to watch a movie, normal, peaceful things. The doorbell rang at 9 in the morning. I was not expecting anyone. I almost did not answer, but something made me walk to the front door. I looked through the peephole and my entire body went cold. Glenn, Diane, and Kimberly stood on my doorstep. 5 years of silence, and they were right there. They had suitcases, multiple suitcases, like they were moving in. I stood frozen, hand on the doorknob, mind racing through impossible explanations for what I was seeing. I opened the door. I do not know why. Maybe shock, maybe morbid curiosity, maybe some small part of me that still wanted them to surprise me, to be different. My mother spoke first, her voice cheerful, like we had just seen each other last week. Surprise. We thought we would come stay for a while. My father added, "We found your address through public records. Nice place you have got here." Kimberly stood behind them, silent, looking uncomfortable, but also entitled, like she did not want to be there, but also expected to be welcomed. I could not speak. I just stood there, noticing details my brain catalogued automatically. My father's clothes were cheaper than I remembered, off-brand polos and worn jeans. My mother's hair had gone gray and she had not bothered dyeing it. Her face looked worn, tired, older than her years. They both looked like people who had been through something hard. My mother kept talking, filling the silence. "We have had some hard times, Pascal. Your father lost his job last year. We lost the house 6 months ago. We have been staying with Kimberly, but her apartment is too small for all of us." Kimberly interrupted, her voice sharp. "I cannot handle them anymore. They need to stay somewhere else." My father took over, his tone reasonable, like we were negotiating a business deal. "Family helps family, Pascal. We know you have done well for yourself. We just need a place to stay until we get back on our feet. Couple months maybe, just until I find something steady." My mother's voice got softer, more pleading. "It is the right thing to do. We are your parents." I stood in my doorway, 5 years of pain and therapy and growth flooding back in one terrible moment. They were waiting for me to respond. My silence seemed to confuse them. My mother started to look annoyed. My father's jaw tightened. Kimberly rolled her eyes. They assumed my silence meant agreement. My father bent down to pick up the largest suitcase. My mother reached for another one. They were going to walk right into my home, into my safe space, like they had any right to be there. That is when something inside me clicked into place. Stop. My voice came out calm, steady, stronger than I felt. Put those down. My father froze suitcase handle in his grip. My mother straightened up, confused. Kimberly's eyes narrowed. You are not coming in. You are not staying here. My mother's face crumpled, immediately tears appearing like she had them on standby. How can you be so cruel? We have nowhere to go, Pascal. We are family. We need help. My father's confusion shifted to anger fast. We are your parents. After everything we did for you, you are going to turn us away. You owe us. Something about those words, you owe us, flipped a switch. All the therapy, all the work I had done, understanding what happened and why, all the boundaries I had learned to set, came together in one clear moment. You kicked me out 5 years ago. I said, each word deliberate. You threw me out because I would not give you money that was not even accessible to give. Money I earned with my own work, my own grades, my own effort. Pascal, we made mistakes. My mother tried to interrupt. I raised my hand. I am not finished. You called me selfish. You called me a disappointment. You threw my belongings in trash bags on the lawn on my graduation night. You humiliated me in front of the entire neighborhood. We were upset, my father started. You did not care where I would sleep that night. I continued, my voice getting stronger. I was 18 years old, freshly graduated, and you made me homeless. You changed the locks. You left me sitting on the curb in my graduation gown with everything I owned in garbage bags. Kimberly tried to speak. That was 5 years ago. People change. You chose money over your son, I said, looking straight at my parents. Not me. You. You made that choice. You decided a scholarship you had no right to was more important than your child having a home. My mother was crying harder now, but I did not feel guilty. Dr. Williams and I had worked through this exact scenario in therapy, though I never actually believed it would happen. You do not get to show up now because it is convenient, I said. You do not get to treat me like I was disposable and then expect me to rescue you when your lives fall apart. We are family, my mother whispered. Family does not do what you did. You taught me that lesson very clearly 5 years ago. My father's face turned red. He dropped the suitcase handle. You are going to regret this, Pascal. You are going to need us someday, and we will not be there. I almost laughed. I needed you my whole childhood. You were never there. I needed you at 14 when I had to get a job to buy my own school supplies. I needed you at 17 when I was applying to universities alone. I needed you at 18 when you threw me out. I learned to live without you a long time ago. We made mistakes, but everyone deserves forgiveness. My mother tried again. Forgiveness is not the same as letting you move into my home, I said. Forgiveness does not mean erasing boundaries. Forgiveness does not mean giving you access to hurt me again. My father took a step closer, trying to intimidate me. It might have worked 5 years ago. Now I was taller than him, stronger, and more importantly, I was not afraid. You are making a huge mistake, he said, voice low and threatening. No, I said calmly. I regretted things 5 years ago when I sat on that curb wondering what I did wrong to deserve parents like you. I do not regret anything now. I regret nothing about protecting myself, building my own life, and choosing people who actually care about me. Kimberly made a disgusted sound. You are still so selfish. I looked at her, my sister, who I used to buy school supplies for, who I tutored through math, who I tried to protect from seeing how bad things really were. You called me selfish for keeping a scholarship I earned. You are calling me selfish for not housing parents who abandoned me. Do you hear yourself? She looked away. I took a breath, centered myself the way Dr. Williams taught me. I am going to close this door now. Do not come back. Do not contact me. If you show up here again, I will call the police for trespassing. We are done. We have been done for 5 years. This does not change anything. My mother reached out like she was going to touch me. Please, Pascal, we have nowhere else to go. I stepped back. That is not my problem. You made it very clear 5 years ago that my problems were not yours. I am returning the favor. My father's face twisted with rage. You will regret this. Mark my words. The only thing I regret is that it took me 18 years to see who you really were. Goodbye. I closed the door, locked it, put my back against it, and stood there listening. My mother was crying loudly on the other side. My father was swearing, angry, muttering I could not quite make out. Kimberly said something sharp I did not catch. Then footsteps, walking away, car doors, an engine starting, the sound fading down the street. I stood there for a long time shaking, but not from fear. from adrenaline, from relief, from the sheer weight of finally standing up to them in a way that mattered. My phone was in my pocket. I called Emma. She answered on the first ring, cheerful, asking if I still wanted her to bring anything for dinner. I told her what just happened. She said she would be there in 20 minutes. She arrived in 15. I opened the door and she just held me while I processed everything. We sat on my couch, the one I bought with my own money in my own home, and I told her every detail. She listened, asked questions, validated every feeling, told me I did the right thing, told me she was proud of me. The next few days were strange. I kept expecting them to come back, to call, to find some way to force the issue. But nothing. Silence. I talked about it extensively in my next therapy session. Dr. Williams reminded me that I had just done one of the hardest things a person can do: enforce a boundary with family who refused to respect it. Over the following weeks, I processed what happened in layers. First, the shock wore off. Then anger at their audacity, their entitlement. Then something unexpected: grief. Not for them, but for the fantasy I had been carrying without realizing it. Some small part of me had apparently still hoped they might change, might apologize, might become the parents I deserved. Seeing them on my doorstep demanding instead of asking, taking instead of giving, killed that hope completely. But underneath the grief was something lighter. Freedom. Real, genuine freedom. I did not have to wonder anymore what I would do if they showed up. I knew. I had done it. I had said no, set the boundary, and survived. I did not feel guilty. That surprised me most of all. Dr. Williams said that was growth, that was healing. Old me would have drowned in guilt. New me understood that protecting myself was not cruel. It was necessary. 6 months passed. No further contact. I got promoted again at work, leading even bigger projects, making $165,000 a year. Emma and I moved in together, getting a slightly bigger place with room for a home office. Life continued forward. A year after they showed up at my door, I drove past my childhood home. New family living there now, kids' bikes in the driveway, basketball hoop over the garage. It looked loved in a way it never had when I lived there. I felt nothing looking at it. No pain, no longing, just acknowledgement. That was then, this is now. I thought about all of it. The scholarship that started everything, the trash bags on the lawn, the 5 years of building a life without them, the moment they showed up expecting me to save them, the moment I said no. People think family means you owe them everything no matter how they treat you. But real family is about love, respect, mutual care. Real family does not throw you away when you are no longer useful and show up demanding support when they need something. Real family shows up consistently, not just when it benefits them. The family that mattered showed up for me. Trevor's parents took me in, gave me a safe place, treated me like a son. My friends supported me through college. My mentors at work invested in my growth. Emma chose me every day, built a life with me, stood by me through hard moments. That is family. That is what family actually means. Setting that boundary, closing that door on my parents was not about revenge. It was not even about them, really. It was about honoring myself, about saying I deserve better than being someone's backup plan. I deserve better than people who only value me when I can give them something. I deserve people who show up because they want to, not because they need to. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes saying no is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. Not everyone deserves access to you, even if they share your blood, especially if they hurt you, abandoned you, and refused to take accountability. I built a life I am proud of. Not because I am rich or successful by conventional metrics, though I am grateful for financial stability. I am proud because I did it with integrity, with people who genuinely care about me, with boundaries that protect my peace, with choices that honor who I am and what I need. If you are in a situation where family is toxic, where they use you or hurt you or abandon you until they need something, I want you to know this: you are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to choose peace over obligation. You are allowed to build a family that is not related by blood, but by choice and love and mutual respect. Saying no to my parents was one of the hardest and healthiest things I have ever done. I chose peace. I chose safety. I chose myself, and I have never looked back. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with family? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it with them. hit that like button if you believe choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. And subscribe because I will keep sharing real stories about real struggles and how we overcome them. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you find the courage to protect your own peace. Take care of yourselves out there.